Adding in a content warning, this interview includes discussions of real life suicide, bullying, physical violence, and loss of life due to gun violence. Please listen with care. Hi, this is Emily with Pixel Breakdown, and today we have Tim from Krauser's studio. You want to give a quick introduction?
My name's Tim. I go by my online name Cage a lot as well. I'm a solo developer, kind of just starting off on the indie game world. I've got like a couple of games under my belt and a few like demos and previews, but nothing like that's like super major yet.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed looking into your games. You kind of stick into horror, right?
Yeah, that's kind of like horror's just kind of been like I like to do action, but honestly, like I feel like I really I'm able to get emotionally invested in horror, but I'm still limited by like what I can do as a game dev because there's just always more to learn when it comes to like using like Unity or something.
Yeah, that's one of the things that can be difficult when doing solo dev, but it also feels really rewarding. I am curious though, like what drew you into developing horror games versus another genre? Because let's be real, like horror games is up there with like fighting games where it's kind of it can be hard to do correctly. And there is a line where horror can become cheesy, which also has a really great side to it too. But yeah, I think it's brave that you're doing horror. What drew you to that?
Well, firstly, I feel like to make good horror, you have to experience horror. Anybody can replicate it, but you're going to end up with a game that's what I like to call just it's like a haunted house game where you can't really die, and it's just jump scares. And like when I play those games, I have about five. Yeah, in the first 5 minutes, if you've shown me that I'm not in actual danger, I don't care. The jump scares don't do anything. But what kind of got me into horror is while I was growing up, I was a little kid. I grew up on the edge of gang territory, and people would just constantly mess with you, especially if you're an overweight kid because they know you can't get
Mhm.
away from them, so you're kind of like easy prey.
Yeah.
But one day, this Buick full of just these colossal assholes started just like following me everywhere. I wasn't looking around. I wasn't doing anything. I was just walking from school home, and these assholes are pulled over on the side of the road and started like yelling at me, making fun of me and stuff. The problem with bullies is if you try and ignore them, they'll escalate things to get a reaction out of you. So start honking their horn, end up having to cross in front of them, go across the road. So then they floored it and stopped like within a couple of inches. Of course, I dove out of the way because I'm thinking I'm about to get hit here. They're all laughing at me and stuff. And it just
Right.
kept escalating till like, one day, they got out, started making fun of me, shoving me, started hitting me and stuff. And then like every single day that they would do this, it would always escalate. And it's usually like 2 or 3 times a week. Um, and it was just yeah, they would kind of block my ability to get away. Like there was a significant amount of room between the school and any nearby neighborhoods or whatever, so it's like I couldn't really sneak away, and I also looked
Yeah.
weird, like really unique as well. um and so sometimes I would evade them. Most of the times they would catch me. For what I could tell, if they actually tried to find me, they could find me. I wasn't super good at like being stealthy back then. um, Things really like started to wear me down where it's like, I was going home with injuries every day. They get worse and
Mm.
worse and worse until the first time things were like getting really too far. They had dragged me out to these railroad tracks and made me sit by this pole while they just took turns like just picking up rocks and throwing them at me. The thing is, though, the brain is a really complicated thing, and I can't really explain everything that happens. But in that moment, I just didn't want to be alone. But the problem is, everyone kind of in the neighborhood knows what's going on. So, like, when everyone's, you can tell that, these guys are about to like seriously mess me up. Everyone's going inside, doors are closing, windows
Oh,
are
that's
being
so
blown.
messed up.
Yeah, so it's just like in that moment, like all I want to do was just know that I wasn't alone. Someone was watching. They couldn't do anything.
Yeah.
Just so someone wasn't watching, and they kept like throwing rocks at me, throwing bottles at me and stuff, and all this crap. And like they started like, okay, like how far can we throw these really big rocks? And then this one guy like took this rock with both of his hands and threw it at me and hit me right on my fucking ankle. And to my luck, he stumbled after and fell down the railroad tracks. And they were all laughing and looking at him. And I got off. I was able to make like a dead run, disappear behind some houses, and hide in some bushes. And like they kind of walked along and were looking for me. If I had kept running, I could have gotten away from them, but like, yeah, I was already just covered in injuries. My ankle was all messed up. Like,
Yeah.
I knew I could not get any farther because you can only push your body so far before, like, your muscles and your joints just give out, and there is nothing else to push. Um, now, so that was pretty bad. But then like it got to a point where they had on me on the ground, were stomping on me, laughing at me, kicking my sides and stuff. And there was a
Uh,
point of pain where you lose control of your bowels, and I just pissed all over myself. And they were laughing at me
uh,
and shit. And then they dragged me over to their trunk, threw me inside. We drove for like what was an hour, and like they occasionally like jerk the car and make me go like slam into the wall or whatever. There were some tools in there hitting me. Whenever I cry out, they'd all laugh and shit. Sometimes they'd slam on the brakes, but they took me out into the middle of freaking nowhere and made me get out. And they would chase me like with their car. Tell me like keep running, fat boy. We're gonna run you fuck down and shit. And so it's like yeah, I'm not in good shape. And so, they would constantly just chase me in their vehicle, like act like they're going to let me go. They start driving down the road, then do the U-turn, start flooring it at me, and just like run really, really, really fast. And it was just like they were like right on my ass. Where if I'd fallen down, they would have immediately ran me over. They'd have no time to stop at all. And then when they were done messing with me, they just left me out there. And so I remember the sun being like, I want to say like at a 45-degree angle. By the time I got back to town, not even my house, got back to town, the sun was setting. So I'd spent all day just running from these guys, covered in injuries. Um, when I've told the story before, the most common question I get is like, why didn't you go to your parents? Why didn't you go to the cops? Why didn't you go to the teachers? My parents had a lot of issues at the time. And my dad was very like, well, just kick their asses kind of a person. And my mom was always like, well, just bring your problems to Jesus. And I'm like, none of these things
neither
help
of
me.
those help.
Like,
Yeah.
I hate the phrase, like, just be a man about it. I'm like, you expect me to what? Just automatically be able to kick all their asses? There's like 5 or 6 of them.
That
And like,
saying makes me so mad. Yeah.
like I ended up playing hooky for a couple of days, and I know to like a lot of people they're just like, well, I would just stop going to that school. But I grew up in a really strict Christian environment where you always followed the rules, you did what your adults told you and stuff like that. So now for a couple of days though, I got lucky in this the whole. So I got notes in front of me, and like my brain keeps wanting to try and like change the subject and crap. So I'm trying to stay on topic here.
You're
Um,
fine. Just
but so
yeah.
yeah, it happened on like a Friday, so I had like Saturday and Sunday to rest up. I ended up playing hooky just Monday and Tuesday, and then I was reading. I used to go to the library a lot. I was reading this book on Vietnam, and I had a few ideas. I made these like little like. I went to like this is like midnight, mind you. I'm able to
Yeah.
like go out to where I usually go, and I start trying to make these little places to hide. Where it's like I make like some sticks, tie them sticks into like a big triangle, tie them together, and just kind of like so there's like just enough room where I could lay down, and I just pile stuff on top of the sticks. They were really really basic, but like I didn't make just one. I made, like I want to say like about a dozen of these little hiding places and stuff. And in my head, I was
Yeah.
like, this is perfect. They're like I'm able to hide really easily. So the next day, and like I run across the road or whatever, and I can see the Buick on the other end because one thing they had learned is that there's a big river behind the school, so I have to go north, east, or west. I can't go south, and if they park on the northern end, I can't evade them at all. And the
Right.
teachers didn't let you go there at all. When I tried to talk to some of the teachers about it, they were so used to kids messing each other up that like they're just like, okay, what do you want me to do about it? They didn't really care. They were stressed out. They're underpaid. All the kids were jerks. If they even
Right.
remotely try to be like, be disciplinary at all, the parents come in and yell at them. So they didn't care. They didn't really know what to do. So I was just completely on my own, which is like a theme in like most of my horror games where you're completely on your own. And I feel like that's
Yeah.
always like um unnerving when you're on your own.
No,
So
it
I make all these
is.
hiding places after school. I run across the road, try and get as much time as I can. And I think I'm like 3 or 4 hiding places down when I hide my first place. They come by, and I can see through like a couple of leaves, and like they're checking all my hiding places. And I realize like these places are really obvious. Like at
Oh.
nighttime, yeah, they blended in. In the day, they didn't because like it's fresh grass with a bunch of random
Right.
debris. Yeah, and it's clearly the size someone be able to hide in. So I'm able to back out of my little place. I run over by a couple of houses to where I'd made some other hiding places, and someone had to clean them all up. And I was like, oh my god, like this is it. This is my only place to hide because like in order to go out there, there was a lot of road, like open roads and stuff like that. I know they would find me because they usually did. There was a lot of strategical problems with me trying to hide from them with just how the neighborhoods are laid out. There's not really anywhere to go, nowhere to hide, and there's lots of open places where they could just sit there and wait as a checkpoint and let a couple of their dudes out to come and find me. And like, these guys are like twice my age, way more athletic and stuff like that. So there was this lady that was like, throwing my stuff away. She was a Hispanic, didn't speak English, could tell like, like immediately what was going on. And she starts
Yeah.
pointing out this doghouse she had. So I scramble, I get inside. I can barely fit. Like this is clearly like, little house made for like a terror or whatever. For like I really had to get in there. She ended up hanging some kind of rug over the entrance so you couldn't see me. And
Oh, nice.
yeah, someone was watching a movie upstairs. I was in that doghouse for so long that they finished the movie. It was
Oh,
cramped, it was hot, it was horrible. But I was able to evade them for a little bit, and I was just like, "That's it. What else can I do?" I've tried, hiding. I didn't know how to make traps or anything like that. I didn't know what to do.
you can only
So
do so much at that age, like
yeah, I'm in like yeah. I was in sixth grade. Like
you're just
don't
a
be telling me.
baby.
Yeah, like I had, I was completely 180 of who I am now. I didn't have the skill sets or the knowledge. I didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
So I get to past the first neighborhoods or whatever, duck around somewhere, make it look I'm going to go hide, but then keep going. And I'm in this like the large opening, whatever. And I see this girl walking by herself, and I can't really explain it. I just did not want to be fucking alone. Like that's
Yeah.
all I can really say. I just did not want to be alone anymore. So I catch up to her. I'm being nice and just kind of talking to her and stuff. And she's my age, and we're kind of talking everything. And then I hear their Buick engine. I'm just like, okay, at least someone's been nice to me today. Um, and so we're getting near the road before like it does into like a four-way, and there's this house with these four dudes sitting outside of it. And so the Buick pulls up and they start yelling at us. The dudes in the house get up and they start running over to us, and they're all pulling out pistols and shit. And they probably assumed that they were messing with the girl and not me. And so the Buick does a 180 and speeds away. These four guys climb to an SUV and just start chasing them down. And I'm like, okay, well, this is my one chance. So I just like I book it towards my house, and I'm able to get home. And like 2 minutes into like on my way home, I'm hearing just gunshots left and right. Like there's several neighborhoods down. If you've been like shot at or near gangs or whatever, you can tell the difference between fireworks and gunshots. I don't know
Yeah.
how to explain the sound, but you can just tell. So the next day at school, everyone's talking about it. Apparently, it had made the local newspaper, which was pretty rare because like everyone was just sick to death of gang stuff. It was completely
Yeah.
normalized. No one really cared anymore. But like this apparently, some people had gotten hit. Um, I never looked at the article. I didn't ask any questions. I didn't read it. I didn't do anything. I just wanted to block it out. So I don't know whether I should feel bad about starting that little thing or whatever, but like to me it was like a survival thing. It's like I didn't know how much were things going to escalate. I didn't have any options. I didn't have anybody to talk to. I tried to do everything. I didn't piss anybody off. I just wanted to be left the fuck alone. And like there was
It's not
nothing.
your fault, first of all. I mean, you were just trying to survive, right? And there's no excuse for messing with a kid like that. Really anyone. But I just yeah, that was not nothing that happened to them during that is your fault at all. Like you were in every right to seek some help. And yeah, I
Yeah,
appreciate that you shared that story, you know. I can see where the fear comes from and like those moments that you're like that you tie into like the horror. I think it's really um amazing that you're someone who's able to take the trauma that you experienced and translate it into art. Like I know I also experienced some trauma when I was younger. Let's just say I had trouble. I couldn't sleep on my own after it. And I let that kind of just destroy me up until early adulthood. I did not turn it into anything other than PTSD and like sleep paralysis. So I think that it's like for me, it's really inspiring to hear someone like you who took this traumatic experience and you're focusing it and channeling it into this like art, and it just seems very empowering to me, you know.
I can't tell if I'm supposed to look at your eyes or the camera. Like, I know from your perspective, if I look at you in the eyes, that's because I'm looking at the camera. But my instinct is literally to look at your face.
Look anywhere
I don't
but
know.
the water that I spilt on me. Anywhere but there, it's fine.
My eyes are drawn to the bookcase. Like,
Oh yeah, there's a lot of stuff.
um, yeah. So now, all things considered, things kept getting worse. I didn't know that that was actually just the gates of hell. Um,
Oh.
However, that stood out to me because I was at my most vulnerable. I didn't know how things worked. I didn't know what to do. And as I got older, I kind of understood, like, it puts you in this mentality where you have to start using people as pawns. You don't like it, and it's instinctual. No one talks about it, but you have to. So it's like, you would, if you and your friends wanted to be safe, you'd befriend someone who doesn't know the area, and you have them. You can, sometimes if you're driving along, you can actually see this. It's going to be a group of kids. They're going to have one kid that's in front and close to the road. The reason they're in front is because if some tweaker jumps out and attacks you, they're going to go for whoever's in front. If someone's driving along the road and wants to mess with you, they're going to mess with the kid who's closest to them. So this
Mm.
kid's kind of like in the right area. And so if you're driving along and you see that, that's what you know what's going on. So they're letting their friend go first. And they don't. It's not that they don't give a shit about this kid. They have to tell themselves they don't in order to survive.
It sounds like
Um,
you've analyzed a lot of situations, and I could see that being useful in finding certain mechanics for horror
yeah.
like game. Most definitely. Like it adds a whole other layer to the game, I think.
Yeah, I'm really big on upgrades. I love upgrades. I love giving players lots of different tactical advantages, stuff like that. And like, I've hit the point now where I'm really trying to put more of these into games. But there's always been like, a giant bug would occur. I have to just put the project aside for a while and read a lot of Unity manuals. I'm so tired of Unity manuals. But so yeah, that's been a theme for a lot of my stuff. But like, that time though, that was, I was at my most vulnerable and crap was that bad. If you had told me that things were going to get worse and this was just like the opening salvo, I may have just tried to take my own life right then and there.
Oh,
Because
I'm
I just
glad
had
that
like,
you didn't. I'm glad that that you're here now to make these really interesting games and, everything else that you're doing. Like you should actually be very proud of yourself for going through that, you know.
I try to, but like there's also a lot of guilt associated with it. Having to just like jump back and forth between being a human being and being kind of like damn near sociopathic in order to survive. Like it does things to your brain. Like your brain tries to choose one or the other, and you can't.
Yeah.
And it's a really emotionally complicated thing. But I try and put that into my games. I finally hit a point where I actually start doing that. Whereas before, like my horror games were kind of basic. But that was the best I could do as a video game developer at the time.
Everyone starts somewhere, you know. But yeah, I think it's great that there's this extra dimension to your games. I think that adds a lot to it. Um, I will say, okay, so yeah, so which genre of horror then do you typically go for? Then it sounds like psychological versus like gore and that sort of thing. It's not shock value. It's genuinely like creepy and goosebump inducing.
Yeah, I don't like jump scares. They're just kind of like, they've been done. They wear off pretty quickly. I like survival horror where you don't know what's going on. You have some semblance of where stuff is. You know what to do. There's resources to get. In different ways to like kind of like advance like what you have as a player, but for the most part, like you can't kill the threat. You can only like postpone it. You only kind of prepare for it. I don't
Yeah,
like games where you're completely vulnerable, but I don't necessarily want to give you the ability to necessarily fight back. Just like
right.
it's just like always to like evade or fend off like whatever's trying to kill you. And like so it's like then there's always the scare factor of like you don't know. So you don't necessarily know where the enemies are, but like sometimes they'll have like different little sound cues where you can hear, they're nearby, and you have to be on your toes, but you can't see where they are necessarily until it's too late.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. I saw quite a few reviews of the game that were saying, like, praising the uh genuinely creepy vibes that you did. How do you approach building those like tense, eerie atmospheres in your game?
I try to like. I don't want to just replicate what's been done. In my first game, Transcending Fear, we like the one of the characters that talks to you makes fun of the idea of like, well, at least you're not going to a hospital where they did horrible experiments, which is just a cliche that I just I cringe so hard when I'm playing a horror game. It's like it's a hospital. What happened here? And it's just like so. I try to like, okay, let's try and make a realistic location. What is there? They have to kind of figure out the lighting. The lighting is important. It sets the entire mood.
Yes, yeah.
Um, yeah, the first one is the length. It's easiest. You have for people who are unaware with game design, you have kind of like environmental lighting, and you have like local lighting. So like environmental lighting might be like the moon, and like how dark are your shadows, and then local lighting might be like a street light or headlights or lights on inside of a house. Um, so that, and then you have to understand like what is your game going to be in order how to mess with that lighting. Um, then there's I like to try and I don't want to just put up a wall of smoke that stops you from seeing the edge like Silent Hill does.
Yeah.
So you'll notice that in Dead Neighbors, your enemies blend into the environment at a distance, and I worked
Ooh,
really hard on
creepy.
that. Yeah, so it's like
That's
you
creepy.
can't, yeah, you can't quite see them, and it's like
Ooh.
unless they're really moving around and moving in front of something, and they're moving like when they move towards you is when they blend in the most. You don't realize it's them until they're really like right on your ass.
Oh, that gives me the shivers because I think everyone's had a time or two where you're like, did I hear something outside my house? And you look out the window and you're trying to see like, is that something or is it nothing? Am I like, I don't know. So capturing that and like using it in your game is really cool. Um,
Yeah. There's then there's like the audio. You want to give I didn't do this with Dead Neighbors, but I'm planning on doing this on my other horror games where you want and some ambience noise, and then you want your enemies to make sounds that are slightly similar to that noise, or like they're almost
ooh.
identical but slightly different. So you literally can't tell, was that ambience or is it like one of the monsters or whatever. And with Dead Neighbors, there's it gets even more tense because there's lots of alleyways you have to go behind, and so a creature can come around the corner. They're also programmed in a way where every once in a while they'll mess with you. Like they'll act like they didn't see you go down the alleyway, and all of a sudden double back and like just bolt towards you. So like you have to be like really careful. Okay, did it see me or is it just faking it? Like you don't really
Yeah.
know.
Ooh, it sounds like you have it like almost like a mathematical formula for like the right creepy feel because it's like okay this and then if I have this then I put this into effect and then if not like I don't know that's like I'm literally getting shivers just like hearing about it so
Yeah, so how the game starts is a bunch of dudes spawn. There's like 14 minutes at the beginning, and then it goes through this day-night cycle where when nighttime occurs, this heavy fog settles on the area where it makes it a lot easier to see them up close, but you can't see them from far away, and that's where they actually start
uh,
spawning. And so you have to run around and get all these pickups, and there's upgrades to choose from. But you can't purchase upgrades unless you have experience. You get that from killing the enemies, so it kind of forces you to deal with the threat. Um, but you kind of have to put yourself in danger doing that. And it's like an ongoing process of like you keep trying to have the scavenge in the city to survive. The upgrades can be almost anywhere. But then you also have to, if you keep diving into your game, like how can I make this scarier? The majority of the place items can spawn are in the middle of the map. All the places the enemies
mm,
go are around the circle of the map. So they constantly
right
like intersect the middle of the area. There's lots of random items get stuck on in the middle. Lots of different areas that the enemies can come in on. So there's no choke points. You're just kind of SOL if you go to the middle. But like the upgrade or the pickups, they'll go somewhere, wait about 5 minutes, and then go somewhere else. And so it's like you can technically wait it out, but you only have so much ammo, so much health. You have to also worry about food so you don't starve to death. At first glance, it is just looks like a very basic pickup game, and I have play tested it so much where it's not scary to me anymore. But like I put in a lot of effort to have like a lot of these really like tense organic situations where there are no jump scares. There's no like if you go here, this crap happens and it startles you. It's purely organic, just how the game works, and that's my preferred method of horror.
I love that yeah I can tell from like all the attention to detail and like strategic thought behind how like the mechanics of the game work. That it's definitely not just a generic pickup game. Like it's interesting hearing your thought process for sure. Um,
I need to make a video where like I deep dive into all the different things I did because like at first glance it does look like a basic action pickup game, but I try to make it so much more than that.
yeah, no, I think you making a video would be great. I'll say I saw one of the games that you have. You made it so that the player can interact with or set off fireworks, just kind of just to set them off. Um, and I love when games have like random elements that can be interacted with. Do you have any other like Easter eggs or hidden things like that in any of your games?
Yeah, occasionally. In Transcending Fear, when you get to the final boss, there's a big gym to explore. It's this place that was going to be like a gym. It's going to be like a bunch of different areas, but for the most part, it's just like, and it was never really built into anything. It's just concrete walls. If you try and explore the area, there are several ghosts that will just jump out and scare the living hell out of you. Um, how the end of your mission occurs, or at least the story for what happened there before you showed up, is that this lady had a standoff with the police, and it was like really, really brutal for the police. And so you can go along some of these side areas, and sometimes like ghosts will like pop out at you, and they're trying to get you to waste your flares,
Uh-huh.
um, just to kind of startle you. Um, and or just to also kind of give you a bit of a jump because you're having to constantly listen. So there's these as the ghost wanders through the environment, she'll set off things like dispose of like a microwave that's set on the ground. It'll activate washing
Awesome.
machine, lamps, random stuff. So you have to listen really carefully, and then I overwhelm that sense. Or you're looking around really carefully for lights to go off and stuff like that. All of a sudden, something just rushes at you out of nowhere.
I think that the jump scares in your game work because you build up that creepy, goosebumpy feeling, and then suddenly there's like a jump scare, right? It's not just jump scare, jump scare, jump scare. There's like that
Yeah.
definite build up. It sounds like.
Yeah, there's two things. Yeah, they're scarce, and you can't tell. Like in a lot of games, there's a long hallway. You expect a jump scare in the middle, or at the beginning, the middle, or the end of it. And mine, it's like
Yeah.
a random place you'll just wander around, so you don't really know when they're going to happen. And sometimes they're not necessarily a jump scare, but something will startle you. Like all of a sudden, something will just is just walking towards you, and you're just like, oh, you don't know what it is at first because it's kind of transparent, but it's moving, and it freaks the living hell out of you. So a lot of my players, when they first get to the boss or the final ghost, they emotionally just have a hard time with it because it constantly just messes with your nerves. You have this really creepy EMF detector that it's just really initially it was like a dong every second, but I made it really this like unsettling kind of like drumming sound that's in random increments, and the time
Oh.
between them gets less the closer she gets, and then when she gets really
Ah.
close, that gets the spirit box. We hear like someone just like talking angrily and whispering about something, and the
Oof.
whole thing is very like it just extremely unsettling in every way, shape, and form.
And
So
this
it's
is the
just a
game
little,
where you're hunting ghosts, right?
yeah, they can kill you pretty easily, but yeah.
Were there any like particular movies or games that inspired you, or was it just, your past experience that you
I'm gonna go cliche horror here. The Thing by John Carpenter. Um,
nice?
Easily my favorite. Like I mean, there's a lot of different aspects to it. The you know of one threat, but you don't know about what it can do in its entirety. Then you have to worry about
Yeah.
like the people you have to rely on can also screw you over, which also like I could relate to all these different things where it's just like, okay, I knew these gangbangers are going to mess with me, but will it get to a point where they're going to kill me? Will they pull out weapons? Do they have friends? And then it's like you have to have friends, but you also have to be willing to like, they might be trying to screw you over. You might have to screw them over to survive.
Oh,
There's also
nice.
complexity to it. So that's what I liked about the thing the most. And
Yeah.
yeah, that I guess like its simplicity is what I liked about it. There's no complicated plot. There's not like a complicated plot or character development. It's a group of dudes trying to survive in like what would probably be arguably like one of the worst environments to be in on every shape and form. You get it immediately, and I don't want I try to avoid tutorials with my games if I can. It gives you like a little bit of information when you need to.
Yeah.
And transcending fear, if you just want to be spooked, you can just get into it, get spooked. If you want lore, when you get out of the car, you can pull out your smartphone and talk to Mark. And it's got all these questions that my playtesters want to know about the environment. I wrote them all down
Oh,
and stuff.
nice.
Yeah, so you can select so you can get like lots of like lore and stuff and how some of your stuff works. So, do you like ghost hunting and stuff?
Yeah, it spooks me out, but yes.
Yeah, I kind of took like essential oils and ghost hunting and kind of did my own thing where there's like a scientific element to it, but like
Ooh.
not like we only have like kind of like our feet wet with it and stuff. So like your flashlight is very unique. Your phone has has an obsidian or a case lined with obsidian, so it won't be messed with like other electronics like when ghosts mess with it.
Oh, I like how
Stuff
you
like
didn't
that.
leave that like a like, oh, here's this. Sometimes movies even will leave like it's like, wait, but why does that work there? Isn't there no power or
Yeah.
something? And it's like, so I like that you thought of that. I can tell you think a lot about the like environment. It's just it's fascinating hearing you talk about everything that you put behind it all, honestly.
Yeah, I can't remember all the details, but like there's like the flashlight, the flares themselves. They're not just normal flares. They have a very specific thing. They're not good to use for normal light up flares. They're I forget what it is, but they emit it into the environment and it breaks a ghost hold on the environment. Same thing with your phone. I don't remember all the details. It's all in the smartphone if you pull it out and you talk to Mark. Um, but yeah, I wanted to take like a sort of a scientific approach, but the problem is if I go too scientific and everything is explained away, it breaks some of the horror because you need to have like a large unknown factor. And
Yes.
future transcending fear games or whatever, you start to encounter things you've never encountered before that you can't beat currently.
Oh.
And it creates like this like, crap, what the hell do I do? And then like you're as a player, you're not told what to do. You have to figure it the fuck out like I did, god damn
Yeah.
it.
I mean, and in reality, when you think of yourself being in like a horror situation, it's like, no, like you probably wouldn't have all the answers right away, right? Like you would have to figure stuff out as you go, which I think adds this other element to it that makes it feel more realistic and not just like a game where you're told like what to do at every moment. Um,
Yeah, I have another game I'm working. I don't have any screenshots right now or anything like that. I forgot to grab everything. So just Unity projects take like 10, 20 minutes to open.
oh, okay.
So when I was playing Dead Space, one of my favorite situations to be in is you don't have shit for ammo, you're scared, you don't know what to do, and you're just constantly flying by on like, the skin of your teeth. I'm working on a game that's very similar to Dead Space, but you don't have a gun. You're able to engineer things in the environment, like put a
Oh,
blade on a
nice.
rotor and it spins, and you can either you hook up like a switch to it, or you press a button, or there's a sensor to it. And so it's like you can you can set up a lot of traps, but you can't necessarily bring anything with you. You can and you can't. It's a very like here's all the resources, all things you can build, figure it the hell out.
Yeah, I
To
love
me is like
that.
the most fun. Yeah, so it's like you got to restore power to a room. You can start using the outlets. Stuff like with the power devices and stuff, and you're constantly battling against this growth that's slowly spreading throughout the ship, and then it'll send enemies at you. And the next part that gets kind of weird is when it sends enemies at you and they get slaughtered by your traps, it'll randomly evolve them until it finds a combination of stuff that thwarts your traps, and then they'll take out everything in the room and stuff. So you're constantly trying to push against this growth and stuff while I'm to give the supplies and watch your ass because you can't just turn around and kill them with a shotgun. You have to engineer something to watch your ass.
Yes, no, I love that. And you're saying that the thing will actually like adapt to like whatever traps and stuff you set, like eventually they won't be as efficient or efficient at all
Yeah.
even. Oh,
Yeah,
nice.
so there's loads of traps you can make, but there's loads of different evolutions for enemies. I'm currently working on this super basic shooter that has something I like to call Darwinian difficulty, whereas it sends a bunch of random dudes at you, analyzes their stats after the wave, and tries to figure, okay, what would be the worst against you? Okay, you have a sniper rifle, so I'm gonna make tons of small, quick dudes. Or if you're like, you're mowing down dudes left and right, okay, I'm gonna send some slow dudes with some heavy armor towards you. And it sits there and tries to analyze all these different numbers and stuff like that. Where I get hung up fun is I got this buddy Kenneth. Despite not being a game developer or programmer himself, he's really good at finding exploits. So I have to figure, okay, once a player understands what the game gets from you, how can the player exploit that, and how can I stop them from exploiting that? Whereas like
Right.
the battle of wits, because like you're both playing and trying to trick the game at the same time. So like it's kind of like this battle of wits and battle of might at the same time while you're playing.
Yes. Actually, that does bring me to one of the questions. How do you test whether like a scene or mechanic is actually scary?
After an hour, if it's still scary, it's going to stay scary.
Yeah.
You can see, for the most part, you can see a jump scare once, maybe twice, but after that, it doesn't mean anything. So if you're like, if you're playing for an hour and it still scares you, like I was still on my, on an edge of my seat playing Dead Neighbors or Transcending Fear. Like I know exactly how she works, every single variable, and I'm still like racking my nerves. Like, okay, did that turn on?
Yes.
She's coming this way, or did she go the other way? Because you can't see the main ghost. She has an apparition that she'll randomly just like flash a couple of times, but then she's just gone for 30 seconds. Your only way to know where she is the EMF detector and the electronics that she sets off. So it's that constant unknown factor.
Yeah. One side question, you were mentioning earlier about like using people around you to adapt or like to help you further along. And like, is that something that you brought into the game? Is there like tough decisions that you have to make, or like, can you betray someone that you talk to or befriend in the game? Or
That is something I plan on having. So with Dead Neighbors 2, there's a lot of complexity to it, and that is something I kind of want to have, where it's like, you can when you're on the ground, you're trying to get your group of soldiers to the evac site, and on the way,
yeah,
there's sometimes going to be some coming over the radio where someone needs help. There are two things. Number one, do I want to risk going and helping this person? Number two, what do I want to take with me? Because any units I take with me can die on the way there, during the mission, or on the way back. So you have to decide
yeah,
how many resources am I going to devote to this rescue operation. Um, or there could be, I have a beacon that'll lure a bunch of monsters and stuff like that. The problem is if I lure it up, they'll show up, destroy it, and they'll just spread out again. So, you can find a group of soldiers, set up the beacon, activate it, and just leave. Because it's not a very, like, you go here, did you complete the objective? It's not like that. It's like, okay, I've gone here, I've gotten close enough to give the soldiers orders, and then we kind of go back to the main valley and keep moving forward. So it's completely up to you as the player. Like, okay, do I actually want to try, to help these people, or do I want to take this BTR that I'm not really using, park it there, let them activate the beacon, and have them draw in monsters so we can really just kind of like run for it.
yeah.
So there's
I
lots of like
like.
morality and tactics to be done.
Yeah, when I hear you talking, I definitely see like there is the psychology meets, you know, the horror side, which I think is fascinating.
Well,
Um,
I feel like it's always been one or two things. It's either very scientific and number based and nerdy, or very action packed or horror packed. I'm trying to merge those because that's
yeah,
what I have to
yeah,
do.
yeah. No, it sounds like you are like a scientist of horror almost. um,
It's been a lot of time at the library. Let me tell you, I love libraries.
oh, that's awesome. I do want to know, like, have you ever scrapped a horror idea because it was like too difficult to implement or maybe not working as intended? Or are there things where it's like you're like, well, down the line I'll do that, right? Like,
Yeah, the so in Transcending Fear, I wanted it to be like a normal thing of my games where there's like a car sequence, because in Transcending Fear, you start off, you're driving a car to the location, and this is like a plot thing later on. Like to you, the player, this just seems like an extra game mechanic, but it's actually an important part of the plot later on. But there's this ghost haunting your car. And so she'll be sitting in the back. And you can barely see her in your rearview mirror. So you have to turn, you have to look at her, and she'll go away. And so on easy difficulty, she can only be in the left or the right back seat. Something in the back seat is a horror aspect that everyone forgot about, and I'm bringing it back, goddammit.
nice.
So on medium difficulty, she can also be in your passenger seat. On hard difficulty, she can be on both sides of the back seat, in the passenger seat, peeking at you over the doors, peeking at you over the windshield, or she'll just start crawling, go full grudge and start crawling over
Oh,
your windshield at you all of a
God.
sudden. And so now you have a limited amount of time to look at her now, and you can't just keep looking because there are objects on the road you have to avoid and like and stuff like that. However, as much as I loved that sequence and the idea of it, it's like 5 minutes of driving, and it is just like it is fatiguing in the worst kind of way.
Yeah.
Initially, there were no checkpoints, and I liked the idea of like it being really punishing, but having to do all that driving. The streamer that I showed you, I think she was playing for like an hour and a half of just the driving sequence, and it stopped being scary. She just started getting pissed off. So like, okay, make the
Uh,
driving scene shorter, harder, and scarier, but definitely shorter.
yeah. Also, I just want to mention real quick, I'll include videos of this stuff I'll get from you later. And then also, um, I'll link the streamer's info also. Um, but no, that's good that you're like taking it's not even like she's telling you the feedback, but it's good to see that you're like watching the playthrough and pulling feedback from it, and then adapting the game based on that.
Yeah. One a side note, something I noticed that was fascinating is I'm in America. We drive, on the right side of the road. So a lot of my obstacles were on the right side of the road. She drives on the left side because she's in Norway. And so I realized like, wait a
Oh.
minute, she's not hitting as many traps because she's driving on the left side of the road. Like, oh, I didn't even realize I was doing that. Like, so I ended up having to change it since then. So when you'll notice in the footage, there's lots of bugs. I've patched almost all the bugs that she saw, and the stuff that's like on the road is also randomized.
Yeah.
That kind of like that's another thing I put on my games. Lots of randomization, so there's good, like, lots of replay value.
Nice.
I
Yeah.
made it to where lots of things spawn on both sides of the road and stuff like that instead of favoring just the right side of the road where I drive.
Yeah. That's cool. I do also want to know more about like because you've mentioned Unity a few times. What game engine do you develop in, and is there a particular reason you use that one, or have you also tried developing in other engines and maybe scrapped using them?
I tried Unreal and everything was just like cranked up to max, like all the visuals and stuff, and I didn't really know anything was called and stuff. I initially used Unity because like the idea of writing script made me want to die. It's just not how my brain worked. I don't know how you do it, but like hell no. So Unity has an add-on called Playmaker, which is its own community and everything. It's a visual scripter. So for the audience, I want to try to imagine that I create like a state, and a state is essentially just like a list of actions.
Yeah.
So a state might be like when I press W, or it's waiting for me to press W. When I press W, it follows a transition to a different state where it applies forward momentum to my character, and it's waiting until I stop pressing W, and then it goes back to that first state where I'm not moving at all. And you just keep doing that until you have controls. Now there are more complex actions. You can have actions embedded inside of actions. You can make it real complicated.
I've never heard of play. You said it's Playmaker. It's a
Yeah,
plugin.
yeah. It's made by Hutong Games. Wonderful company. No typical BS. um, However, I despise Unity. Maybe I'm just too much of a noob, but I've just had too many problems with them. However, I stay for Playmaker in the community because there's this guy, Steven, who he started off making videos for Playmaker and kind of went off and did his own thing. But he still gives lots of support for Playmaker. So
Yeah.
he's been like my game dev mentor. Told me everything. There have been so many times where he's just dropped what he's done, gotten to a video call with me, and helped me figure out like what the hell is going on. Because I
That's
mean,
awesome.
no matter whether you're using blueprints in Unreal Engine, Playmaker, some other kind of visual scripter, or just writing C# script, programming will always be like tedious and complicated. Um, and so there's no real getting away from that. But Playmaker just worked for me better mentally because it'll highlight what state and then also highlight what actions in that state are being played on. You can visually see what's going to go where. It'll highlight what transition it just used to get from one state to the other. It's just mentally, it's just easier to keep track of things, in my opinion.
Wait, are you able to make the whole game using Playmaker? Like you didn't even have to touch code at like C# at all.
No, it actually generates its own C# code and puts it into the background, but
Nice.
it creates that code based on the input you give Playmaker.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. So I did see that with horror films or like horror games, um, like that is one of the genres where that like there's a community and people are really diehards for horror, right? So do you engage with the horror communities at all? And has their feedback influenced your work at all?
So the horror genre is a bit of a minefield. Every so often you'll encounter this jackass that wants to subtly imply that they've killed somebody. And they'll be like, well, if you really want to get away with the body, you're going to plant these flowers, like flowers that are, on the endangered species list. That way the FBI, won't be able to dig them up to look for evidence. Trust me, I'm an expert. And I'll have a winky smiley face. And we talk to them about it. They're like, well, let's just say my ex isn't in the picture anymore with a smiley face. I'm like, you haven't killed a goddamn person, you
Yeah.
fake ass lying asshole. Like, don't even with me. Like, I can't stand those people. I'm just like, you haven't hurt anybody in your life. But like, the problem is, the other problem I have with that though is that like they may have that be their persona as a way to compensate for trauma. So I also feel like I can't call them out on because I know they're doing it to compensate. But it irritates me because I've had to do a lot of shit to survive, and seeing someone just trying like pretend to be like this dark badass person, I'm just like, dude, if you'd hurt anybody, you would not be bragging about it. I don't care who you are. Like
hurting people isn't badass, by the way. But no, it probably like I think I remember hearing about one person who got caught for murder on like after he was posting about it on Reddit. And I think that's like the one instance where it was actually true. But yeah, you're right. The majority of people who post about that stuff, it's like, no, no, you didn't.
Yeah, well, it's like the stereotype stems from I'm blanking her name. I should know this lady's name off my head. Her husband went missing. It was just kind of like well, we don't really know what to do. And it was during a time where she's they thought like there's no way a woman could commit murder, so it wasn't her. She wrote a book about like this fake story about how she would have done it, or how like this lady kills her husband. This is a story that she wrote. Someone noticed that there was a little too many similar details. They did an investigation and found out she actually did kill her husband and wrote a book about doing it. And actually still remember. By that time, I think she was like 65, 68 years old. So I mean, that's where the stereotype comes from. But otherwise, we'll sit there and throw ideas back and forth. And one thing they usually talk about is like, hey, take a simple horror concept, put a spin on it, then put a spin on that specific spin, and just do something unexpected, do something that hasn't been done before, and like having to putting players in a position where they have to make a lot of strategical decisions without being told to do so is my favorite thing. I try not to have tutorials or they have like what I call action tutorials. Like, okay, there's an enemy in front of me. I shoot it. And then it says, okay, hey, you just gained experience. Press U to open your upgrade menu. So it kind of tells you things as you need to know them, just real quick, small snippets. Because one thing I've noticed that's really interesting is when I have a tutorial, I noticed that men will not read the tutorial and women will. And I don't know why. So I had to just I was like, why would you not read the tutorial? It explains things to you. And I had to just accept it. I was like, okay, fine. I'm gonna have like an action tutorial that sends you like a small bit of information at the time. You can just figure it out.
Well, and that's cool because it makes learning the stuff still fun, right? Not just reading it, but it's like you're doing actions to get that stuff down. You're playing a game to learn how to play the game, basically. I'm curious to know what's the best reaction you've seen from a player like experiencing your game.
Oh my God. I should not say this. I feel so bad for her, but Afrira, I think is her name. She was streaming the game. She finally got to the main gym. She's having a legitimate panic attack because she can't handle it. It's a very creepy walk up to the building. As you're walking, sometimes you'll see something like walk between a couple of cars, and you don't know if it's going to attack you, and that's the point. So on the way there, you're like, oh crap, what do I do? All of a sudden it's like, hey, press 1 to use your flashlight, press 1 plus 2 to do this, press 3, press 4. And you're like, oh crap. So you're sitting there trying to figure out all your devices and stuff like that. And stuff. You don't know what's going on, you don't know what to do. And you were told, like, hey, you're gonna go to this building and put down this ghost. And that's all you know. So you're like, is this the ghost? Is something going to attack me? Do I have to shine my flashlight? What do I do? You're not told what to do. So you finally get there, and let me tell you, it took me weeks to find this audio, but there's this wonderful, amazing human being called Laura's Horror Sounds on YouTube. She let me use her stuff for free as long as I put her in the credits, and she makes horrifying things. just it's just her and a microphone and some editing, but it is unnerving. So you had
I
this like
love
this
that.
crying, this horrible crying ghost noise that goes on for like an hour, and you don't hear it being cut or anything like that. So you enter the building, and you can hear her crying, and it's so unsettling. And it does get louder when she gets close to you, but it's a big ass building. So you go there. When you pull your EMF detector, the problem I had was it's too dark. It's like, okay, how can I make this creepier? So I look into the psychology behind lights and stuff, and the light on the EMF detector, it says it's just enough to see if there's a wall or something in front of you, like within like a foot, but it's like
Oof.
this
Yeah.
creepy dark orange, and it's a very unsettling. And so, that's kind of how so, it was that there's some ash going through the air. It's pitch black. We get to a certain point, something slams behind you and covers up the exit. So you can't leave. So you're now stuck in there with this lady. And she just sat there and just staring at the EMF detector, just freaking out, watching it like go up, and her eyes would expand and it go down. She's like, the ghost's going away. And she was just like, and she's sitting there trying to like, do a really bad job going, oh, well, let me answer some questions real quick. Doing this really bad job. I was like, and I eventually messaged her, like, dude, if you're not doing okay mentally, to stop playing. It's okay. It's not worth your mental health. She's like, hey,
Yeah.
thank you. I'm sorry. I really believe in this stuff, and it's really unnerving me. I'm just like, your random horror game player. I hope that they enjoy it. But I wanted to make something for like the ghost community that, like, if you believe in this stuff, I really wanted to mess with you. So it was just all of it, and as well as
That's sweet though
Marcus
that you
Fisher.
told her like you were
Yeah.
had empathy first, right?
I was kind of proud of like
You
it's a
should.
complicated feeling. I was proud that
Yeah.
all my hard work paid off. I felt bad for her, but the
Yeah.
reason she had that because I worked so hard to make that happen.
No, definitely. Like when I was looking through some of the videos, it was like, yeah, I definitely would not play this if I was alone. Like 100% genuinely. Or like I would have to sleep with all the lights on, and even then I would probably be too scared to sleep.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
want to do some classic horror where you can't see the ghost, something is in the back of your car. Like I want to get like back to like the roots of it. And then there's also a point where you're on the highway near the end where else to the gym. Your car shuts down. You have to keep trying to restart the car while also looking around your vehicle because she'll be standing there staring at you. And if you let her stare at you for too long, she'll kill you. You have to constantly
Okay.
look around. It's also trying to restart your car.
It's like the
And
typical like you can't get your key into the door sort of thing. It's like the like that's like so nerve-wracking, the thought.
Yeah.
Like
And you don't know what to do. You said press E to try and restart your car. That's all you were told. And so I try to do that. And one thing I learned is like it's okay to allow people to like, what am I hell am I supposed to do? Like Five Nights at
yeah.
Freddy's did not tell Markiplier a whole lot of what the hell he's supposed to do. He had to just figure it out. I had this mentality where I have to explain to you, the player, everything. But I learned like, no, it's okay to let you just, like not know what the hell is going on and just figure it out the hard way.
How have you been able to balance that? Because you're right, like a lot of players now feel like they get too much information, right? And it takes that like fun and mysterious out of it, and that's really important for horror games in particular. So like, is there any certain like, how do you balance between like giving them just enough information but not too much?
So you start off by like, okay, what do you as the player have to do? You have to go from point A to point B. That's all I need to tell you. And then as a player, you'll naturally figure out, okay, oh, this killed me. When I hear this sound, it's something bad. So we'll just learn purely from association. So if you keep it like everything real nice and basic, like, okay, what would you as a player just do in these situations? I don't
Yeah.
bother explaining those. If you would just naturally just assume that, um, then I don't bother. However, as a game dev, I also take my dad into account, who has only played mostly Age of Empires 3 his entire life.
Yeah.
Um, so when he first learns, like when we first should learn a game, there's lots of things that us gamers just like we've played so many different games that we just instinctively remember to do or we think of things that we don't even realize, like, oh, this thing is colored differently, so it's climbable or breakable. He doesn't know that because he hasn't played those games. To him, it's just some
Right.
random ass, like, why did someone throw yellow paint all over this stuff? And it doesn't occur to him that like, oh, they're trying to show you something. So all those things that we as like veteran gamers take for granted. So I have to make a
Yes.
game that's appealing to newbies, but also is fun for veteran players. It all starts off like, okay, I'm only going to explain something to you that you might not intuitively do.
Yeah. Okay, that's cool. That's cool that you're taking into account like all different types of players too.
Yeah.
Do you, yeah, do you, for your games, do you fund the games yourself or do you use crowdfunding or publisher support?
Not yet. My games are all. I don't want someone telling me what to do. So I want to keep it to where like I don't want to deal with like a publisher or someone else who's like, okay, we'll give you money to have to change X, Y, and Z. Like I don't want to deal with that crap. I want to work on a project when I feel like it. So yeah, right now, I if I'll usually wait for them to go on sale on the Humble Bundle before I like actually spend money because like I'll get like a whole bunch of extra stuff. But right now it doesn't cost me anything. It's just time. Something I usually
Right.
do on the weekend or before or after work.
I would hate to see someone limit your creativity in particular with like the horror stuff. So yeah, that totally makes sense. Um, it would have to be the right the right person who would not interfere with your thought process and stuff. Um, would you ever consider working with a small team, or you prefer staying solo, or would you want to eventually delegate out tasks?
It's a little bit of both. I've tried to start a dev team together. One thing I keep having a problem with is like someone will be like, yeah, I'm gonna do X, Y, and Z. I can do stuff, and like we'll start talking. Everything seems kind of great, and then after like a month or so, they'll just disappear. So when I start bringing
Mm,
like trying to find like other people, one thing I told them is like, hey, look, I understand things get busy. Sometimes your package turns out you don't have the energy for it. That's fine. If you're going to be
yeah,
away for a while, just communicate with me. Just drop me a line every couple of weeks or whatever. But if you ghost me for a month, I'm not going to try and reach out to you.
right.
I'm just going to assume that you don't care anymore. I'm not going to be mad
Yeah,
at you, but I'm not going to
yeah,
waste time
yeah.
with you. And after that month, it's like, especially if I've seen like you've logged on and you're playing games on Steam, but you're not replying to me. I'm sorry, but your heart's not in it, and I don't care enough. There's I've tried chasing people down before, and it's just never worth it. So that's one thing I tell people. That makes it come across like an uptight hard ass. I'm like, I'm not. It's just based on our experiences. And what's really weird is like I wouldn't mind having a team, but it just doesn't work out.
It
I
would
keep
need to be
telling
the
people
right
that.
one. Yeah.
Well, I keep telling people there's like so many. I can show you some basic stuff in 5 minutes, and then you can just kind of like learn as you start doing this stuff. Like, okay, you want to play stuff in Unity? Like, okay, right click, create cube. Here's are the scales, the transform, the rotation. And then if you want to like you find something on Unity Asset Store, here's the package manager tab. You go here. First, you have to download the file to your computer, then you import it into your project, and you can like import it into a whole bunch of different projects, and then you just drag and drop. So 5 minutes show you how to put stuff somewhere. Same with the user interface. Like okay, you create an image. Here's how this is what you do for text. This is how you change the color and the texture of the image. Here's some other things that might happen. There's like or lighting. For lighting can get kind of complicated because sometimes you'll have bleed through. You have to know like different settings and stuff. But I try to
Especially
like
for horror, right? Like lighting is
yeah,
it's a big thing. Yeah.
yeah. So there's just lots of little things like that where I'm just like, yeah, I've made that post several times on Reddit where I'm like, hey, I'm looking for a team. This is what I've done so far. This is what I'm capable of. I can fill in any position that's not filled in. If you start doing something and something comes up, cool, I can finish for you. I just need you to be passionate and dedicated, and I can take
Yeah.
care of the rest. Like, I can teach you any skill that you might be interested in. I'll teach you how to do it in 5 minutes. You can just figure out the rest on your own.
I
This is how we can
understand it
bounce
could be
back and forth.
difficult as a
Yeah, so
solo dev in particular, and like trying to wrangle in people. I'm sure
yeah,
eventually it is just like it's easier just to depend on myself and just get it done.
yeah. So that's something I started doing is I was like, okay, you know what? What's something I can do to help me? So when I make a new game, I have several temporary things that I export into my project or input into my
Nice.
project that I
Yeah.
built. One takes rocks. Or any items that I put under its list, and it'll just randomly distribute them. I set the parameters like
Oh,
how
cool.
far away, and then there's a second one where it has like a box collider around the object. When it detects that it's touched something, it tries to it puts it back in the queue to be placed somewhere else. That way it doesn't overlap. So all I do is I'll plop it in my game, give it the items I want to randomly distribute, and it'll just move them around everywhere. And so they just build my environment for me real quick.
Oh, that's cool. And these were tools that
Um,
you built yourself and like fine
yeah,
tuned them to be what you need. Oh, that's
yeah.
awesome. That is
Yeah,
awesome.
I've been working on them over the years. Every so often, I'll sit down, I'm like, okay, now that I've gotten better with programming, how can I improve this thing? I have an
Yeah.
entire project that is just my lab, and that is just for messing with stuff. Um, and so, yeah, that's what I've been trying to do. I have enemies where I'm just like, okay, I plop the enemy down, give it its model, its animation, stuff like that, give it checkpoints, and it just goes. So I don't have to set up enemies. I have all these templates for health and guns and stuff. I have a random gun generator where it just randomly distributes points amongst its stats. It'll
Oh,
just come up
cool.
with a gun. Yeah.
Yeah, those are those things where if you spend time developing them at the start, then down the road you save so much time, right? Um,
Yeah.
I do want to bring it back to like the horror genre. I'm curious, like, how do you see indie horror games evolving over the next few years?
A lot of people are concerned about AI. The problem with AI is it can duplicate, it cannot create, it cannot really create. Um, so what I want from the horror community is us to start like, okay, what have we not done before?
Yeah,
One thing that like me and Markiplier heavily agree on is that he likes this, I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I have a general idea, but I want to be left up to myself what to do. So
yeah,
games where it's just like, instead of giving you a gun or just a flashlight, there are other things you can do, chemicals you can maybe mix, different components that you can assemble. Not being afraid to make horror games more intellectually stimulating. There will always be an endless supply of basic jump scare games. So we don't have to
right.
worry about that. But let's push the envelope a little bit. That's what I keep telling people. Um, just trying new things. Um, hold on, let me. Yeah, I guess that's for the most part what I tell people.
I notice like for me personally, when it comes to like even horror films, I'm drawn to more the psychological stuff. So yeah, it would be nice to see more um a more of an evolution towards that versus just jump scares.
So I actually found my notes. One thing I like is unpredictable and organic horror, whereas instead of having like preset jump scares, stuff just happens when it happens. One thing I really wanted to make is a horror game where you're going along, you're trying to collect things, you're trying to finish these tasks, and your viewers slowly generate points over time, or they can watch ads to generate a lot more points, or just straight up pay for them, and they can spawn things that help you or hurt you. Now, what
Oh,
naturally happens with this is you'll have a section of your viewers that are just trying to mess with you, and a section of reviewers that are trying to help you, and they'll be at war with each other in the background, and they'll have spies in each other's factions and stuff because they're trying to communicate like, okay, how about at this time we'll all put on our points and spawn zombies on the players and stuff like that. And so there can be lots of things going on in the back end where you don't know what's going to happen, but you know that your viewers are kind of getting together and playing on screwing you over. And so stuff like that, more engage. We also need to make horror games for streamers more.
yes.
That's what I wanted to do is have like a horror game, adult horror games where your viewers are the ones that decide what kind of adventure you're going to have.
Oh yeah. I think with the like more unplanned sort of randomized scaring, I think that's somewhere that's an area where I feel like AI could help. With generating that sort of stuff on the fly or like figuring out where that should go. But I agree too, like seeing a streamer get scared, right? And like scream, it draws you in. It makes you want to play the game or like, so I think definitely keeping in mind streamability of a game is a big thing because those things can go viral and the next thing you know, it's a hit, right?
Yeah, but I mean, like, not necessarily because like there are times where I'll watch a streamer. I don't necessarily want to play the game, but I like talking to the streamer and stuff. And so allowing people to kind of like half play where they can spawn things into the game without actually playing the game
Yes.
themselves. Um,
Yes.
log onto a website and stuff. Just kind of crap like that.
I
There's
love
all
that
these aspects
idea.
that we haven't considered. Yeah, like what are we gonna do for the streamer, and how can we have their audience? I'm also working on a game called Pet Detective, where a streamer can play, and their pet is actually part of the game. It plays a noise that only a cat or a dog can hear when like the murderer is close by. So when your cat like all of a sudden like sits up and looks around, you go, oh, is there something going on, or are they just being a random animal? So it allows
Aw.
the streamer to play with their pet.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, anything that involves cats, I am a big fan of.
Yeah, yeah.
um, okay, just kind of like a fun question I wanted to get out there is if you were stuck in a horror movie, how long do you think you'd survive and what would you do to survive?
It depends on the genre
I
completely. If
know,
I have the
yeah.
chance to like strategize and build stuff, I would do really well. I have plans for like a zombie turbine where zombies are constantly like are on this little wheel and they're constantly just like pushing it because they're trying to like get after me or some meat above them. So
Oh, and they're
using
like
zombies as
generating
labor.
electricity or something.
Yeah, or like I have like a really big wagon that no one can see me in. I got zombies at the front. I just dang a little bit of meat, and they push the wagon, and they'll
Oh,
pull
that's
over any
brilliant.
environment. Yeah,
Yes.
so stuff like that. Just really weird. I don't know. I'm that guy where sometimes I just lay there. I'm like, if I was in a zombie apocalypse, what would I do?
Yeah.
Just so it depends on the genre. If it was like Dead by Daylight, where all you can do is run around and do generators, I'm screwed. But if I have like prep time, if I'm like Batman, where I've got like prep time and things I can work with, I do really well.
Yeah. I'll hit you up if there's ever a zombie apocalypse.
I have a little patch that says "In case of a zombie apocalypse, follow me," and it has
Yeah,
like
yeah.
pictures of holding the screen. So I'm like, yeah.
Because even just the idea of making them do the grunt work, like getting them to carry heavy, like drag heavy things or something somehow for you by, enticing them some way,
Oh,
is really
actually,
cool.
yeah, yeah. While we're actually on the subject, I used to run this Nerf gun game called Humans versus Zombies. Basically, you have two kinds of players. If you have a Nerf gun, you shoot a zombie. They have to take a knee or tag something or whatever their respawn thing is. If you're a zombie, you get hit, you got to take a knee. But your objective is to tag a human. If you tag a human, they turn into a zombie.
I love that.
And so we played that for like 6 years. And I got endless crazy ass stories of stuff going down. And that's also what helped me like, okay, how can I create fun for people? And that,
Yeah.
playing that all the time, like kind of being in charge of it, trying to like, manage a staff and make it scary and make stuff that's different, like it's going on. That was a lot of fun. That's where like a lot of my ideas come from for game design was running humans versus zombies.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that sounds cool. Um, so that's
Oh, we took
something.
out the we sorry, yeah, we took out the air restrictors for our Nerf guns, so they fired a lot harder and a lot further. So, my shot's not gonna go like, a few feet and then drop. Like my sniper rifle was hitting things at like 30, 40 feet.
Oh, like these were actual in real life Nerf guns.
Yeah, we
I
had
love Nerf
heavily
guns.
modified. Yeah,
Oh,
we
that's
had
awesome.
heavily modified. Yeah, we had heavily modified guns. My gun had the air compressor. It was a much heavier spring than normal, but it would wear out the plastic. So the internals for just the tube the spring it was sitting in was actually remade out of metal. Um, and so my gun was able to. I had also had specialized long range rounds because darts, they'd hit a certain speed and they would just start tumbling over themselves. So I had specialized rounds where they're like thicker and heavier, but also had like a more foam at the tip, so it wouldn't hurt as much. And these were for like my long range shots, trying to take out like a special, like a necromancer or a tank or a spitter or something.
That's cool. Um, I guess that covers the questions I have. Was there anything else that you kind of wanted to cover that we haven't yet?
Not off the top of my head. Yeah, I feel like, horror has been kind of one of those things where everyone just kind of keeps making the same thing. I really want
Yeah.
to encourage people like, hey, push the envelope. Let's try something new, not just, a story with something wandering around trying to murder you. Like, let's, introduce some like more mechanics. There's a game I'm working on called Photophobia. Um, you're this engineer, and the relay for this Arctic station has gone down, and your job is to fix it. And you find out that there's monsters running around murdering everyone. And there's this really weird mechanic that I love. So you got shelves that you can hide behind, but the thing is, the shelves aren't solid. The enemy can like see through the gaps in the shelves. So as you go along and play the game, you can find random objects and put them on the shelf to help block line of sight of the enemies when you're hiding behind the shelves.
Oh,
So
cool.
yeah, so it adds a lot of like exploration to it. Like, okay,
Yeah.
hide here a lot, but there's some risky areas. So maybe I can go and get some items, or some random items in the environment, and put them there. Because the one thing, I think it was, I don't quite think it was Minecraft, but one thing I liked was that you'd really want to salvage just every. Oh yeah, no, so yeah, 7 days to die. where you want to just keep and salvage everything. And that's something else I wanted to add into photophobia is like, everything, like no matter how basic you think it is, has its purpose.
Right. Because eventually you might need it to craft something or whatever
Yeah.
it might be. No, I love that. Like, I think the way that you're tackling horror and like with that psychological aspect, like I think it is really inspiring. And, I hope this talk helps get some of that info out. And I hope that people do realize like the thought that has gone into your games. And I think if people want like a good starting point, it sounds like your games are a good place to, if they're wanting a starting point for like branching out into something that's not just the basic horror game. I think that yours is definitely, I would recommend playing. So yeah,
Yeah, I definitely need to make like in-depth videos like where it's making up because when you look at them,
you
they really do kind of
should.
give off the vibe where they're just kind of like basic horror games, or just basic games in general. I'm just like, no, you have no idea how much like this was intentional for this effect and X, Y, and
Yes.
Z.
Yeah, do some case studies. And yeah, if you do videos, I will definitely post them. And I think that would be a great thing for you to do because I think I could hear you talk more about just like the thought process behind the horror stuff. Probably for days, I could sit and listen to it because it's just so interesting hearing like the different like fine tuning these different things. So I recommend I recommend definitely. I'm gonna push for that. I'll keep messaging you about it for you to like get something going with that.
Yeah, I've been meaning to make a lot more progress in my game design stuff, but I've had chronic insomnia. I have a disabled
Uh,
sister I got to keep an eye on. My dad's getting up there in years, as well as some of my relatives. It's been lots of work drama, but like it's
yeah.
that's the part about like having a full time job and being a game dev is finding the time and the
Yeah.
energy and the motivation to keep working.
No, I understand that 100%. But I can tell when you're talking about it that it is something that you get really excited about, and like you're making the game not just to make a game, but you're passionate about it. And so I think you should also remember that like you have to take care of yourself too, and definitely keep time for that. Yeah.
With this next game I'm working on, Dead Neighbors 2. I can't reveal a whole lot of details yet, but I got 6 different decent sized streamers that could be doing voice acting in it.
Oh,
But I
cool.
have cutscenes, story, lots of different stuff in it. This is not going to be a game where you complete it. Like the demo itself is going to be about an hour and a half to beat. But it's going to be like a much larger game when I'm done with it. Like something that would take like 6 or so hours and has a lot of replay value, and a lot of randomization to it. So I'm really feeling like this is going to be the one.
Oh, okay,
When I
cool.
made when I made Transcending Fear, I'm sorry, do we have time to keep talking or
Yeah,
no?
yeah, that's fine. There's no time limit or anything. So,
When I made Transcending Fear, I fucked up the release 5 times in a row. I
oh,
would hurry up, fix something, accidentally turn something else off so I could quickly upload it, and forget to turn that thing back on so that it was unplayable. So I had to take down the files, fix it, rebuild the game files, re-upload the files, which took like 2 or 3 hours.
the
And
never
so
ending
I was like,
cycle
yeah,
of development. Yes.
yeah, and I had the idea of like, yeah, I'm gonna upload it during Halloween. You know who else had the same idea? 931 other people.
No.
I was like, no, that fucking wasn't even playable. I was like, no, 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 no.
Oh,
And I had to like, it was like it took 2 weeks for me to finally fully fix the game, and it
yeah.
broke me. It broke me in ways I have never been broken before. Where I was flopped on my bed, I'm like, that's it. I'm too stupid to make games. And then
No.
eventually, my thing is like, I'd always, I vent my emotions, I say what I need to say, I do what I need to do, but I always get back onto that horse. And eventually I figure out what the
Good.
problem is. I move past it. I learn something from it. And I have a long list of, I have a document that's all just like problems that I keep running into that I forget how I solved it and how I solved it.
I'll say like uh whenever I'm working in like the professional industry in this, I've seen developers who have been working on like games for 20 years and they'll still push things like, builds that cause issues. So that's just something that always, but it's great that you're able to like work through it, you know.
Yeah, one thing that inspired me. So there is this a game called Creeper World. It started off as a basic Flash game on this website, and it exploded with popularity. The guy who made it, Virgil, ended up making it into its own full standalone downloadable game. And this genius decided to go ahead and make it with like a map maker. And this is like 15 years ago. So people were able to create their own content. There was like 10 of us constantly making maps, beating each other's maps. And at the time, I was bouncing on I was like homeless at the time because I had a lot of like trauma. I hadn't dealt with a lot of anger issues, and I had to kind of just
Yeah.
take what I was given. I was pushing people away. I was, I was a dick. I will own that to like a whole bunch of different people. I was constantly like homeless, bouncing around couches and stuff. But no matter how bad about I felt about myself, I'd open up my laptop that could barely like handle anything, but could at least handle the game. And when I open it up, I'd log on and talk to people. I wasn't, Tim, the guy who's having to sleep in some random person's basement or their tool shed.
Yeah.
I was, Tim, the top guy who's really good at making, really fast paced, hard maps and stuff.
Yeah.
Then this guy went on to make a second game and a third game. He told us all about the fourth game he was making. I sent him a letter, being like, "Hey, I realize, we probably never met before, but I was here, your first game, kind of told about our experiences, how much I loved the game." And I wrote him like a letter, but like, I probably, download like 6 different versions of that game because like I would, lose the laptop or the hard drive, and have to re-download and repay for it. I didn't mind. He gave me a free copy of Creeper World 4. And then,
Aw.
yeah, it was really cool. He really appreciated my letter and stuff. And in Creeper World 5, he was showing a live stream of some stuff he was working on. And he said something that stuck with me. And that's weird. I don't know why that's malfunctioning. I haven't even messed with it. Okay, whatever. I'll fix it later. I was like, that's not just me. I'm not an idiot. Like, everyone
No.
does that. I was like,
No, it's not
yay! I'm
just
not.
you. I had that
In
same
Transcending
thing.
Fear, yeah, in Transcending Fear, I had this time where all of a sudden my menu buttons, they just weren't working anymore. I'm just like, what the hell? Why are you not working? I spent hours trying to fix it. I was like, what in the hell? So I ended up having to make a second menu, just like rebuild it from scratch. I was like, I don't know what's going on. I don't care anymore. Because that was the first mistake I made with Transcending Fears. It's not organized, and everything is not labeled, and there's been a lot of there's like more duct tape in Transcending Fear than there is in Home Depot. It got to the point where I try and find a bug. I'm like, okay, so okay, I'm going to go to this object, and you activate this object, and you activate this object, and this activates this, and it was just having to try and figure out, okay, what activates what? Because it's so horribly organized, and just like screw it, I'll fix it later, go go go, and then forget about it. That like I had to make like a blog note where it's like, look, I'm done patching this game. It's
Yeah.
like it'd be easier for me at this point to just rebuild the damn thing, and I do plan on remaking it sometime later on. Um, Probably not anytime soon. But yeah, so I mean, I hit that newbie mode where I'm just like I made something that's just like so horribly coded that part of me is kind of ashamed about it. But I can fix
Everybody
later on and
starts
stuff. So,
somewhere. Also,
yeah.
like, you're definitely not alone in that. Anytime I start feeling like imposter syndrome, I just go to the programmer humor subreddit and go through the memes. And it's like, there's a reason that these memes are made. It is not just you or me who experiences those things, right? Where you're like, why did I make this like that? Like, I can't go back in there and touch it now, or, so yeah.
With photophobia, my enemies they wander the map, they'll chase you for a bit, and they lose sight. They'll go into this aggressive search mode where they walk a lot faster, and they'll very rapidly like go from one area to the other trying to find you, and until eventually they go on their normal casual patrol. And then so the lights are on a timer. When the lights turn off, everything's dark. They'll go dormant unless you shine your flashlight on them. They're really hard to see. They'll just be standing there kind of like randomly like twitching and stuff, just really unsettling. And if you get too close to them or shine your flashlight on them, they'll get pissed off and try and kill you. Or when the lights come back on, the lights are on a timer, but there's about a randomization of about a minute. So they'll be off for about between 4 minutes to 5 minutes, and turn back on from 4 minutes to 5 minutes. So you don't fully know when the lights are going to turn back on. And it's kind of eerie to be in a room searching for something, knowing there's a monster right behind you that can activate at any minute.
Yeah.
Um, and so they were super inefficient at times. There was like 19 states they'd constantly go between. It was obnoxious. And I came back recently, about 6 months ago, and worked on my monsters again. I got them down to 2 states, so they're like 90% less coding, way more, way less complicated. And if there was a bug, I immediately knew where it had to be instead of trying to go through all these states trying to figure, okay, well, what state was it on when this happened? And so be able to go back through your old projects and make them more efficient and just better in general and just cleaner. I just, oh my God, it's a good feeling.
Um, I'll say if anyone's interested in jumping into the horror game genre, definitely check out Krauser Studios games. I'm gonna include links to all of those as well because
Actually,
yeah.
Crowder's Lab. I changed it from studio to lab because I gave up on trying to have like a team.
Oh, okay. Um, so those will be linked. You said it's Krauser's Lab now?
Yeah.
Okay, I like the sounds of that. So yeah, so check out Krauser's Labs games. Definitely recommend it. um, yeah, I appreciate you coming on. Like, this has been really
Thanks
great.
for having me. What do you
Yeah.
plan on doing with your channel? Is it just to shine the spotlight on random indie devs and stuff?
Yeah, that's exactly it. Tim did let me know about a feature he's working on, so I'm just gonna show a screen recording that he made.
Okay, so this is just the quick controls you have for the bot. I'm not going to demonstrate it real quick. You have auto navigate. So let's say you only have my buddy George when we were growing up. He was a quadriplegic and only had like one lop. And me and Carl, we would have bought anything for this kid to let him to play with us, but there was just absolutely nothing. So this operates under the assumption that you can only use your mouse. So you have auto navigate. You set to automatically tell it to follow the nearest player, follow the nearest bot, or you can set it. You can set a custom one where it takes you out of the menu. You look at something, left click, it'll automatically start following that object like about 5 or 6 feet behind. That way you're not like overlapping with it. Aim assistance. If you need a little help knowing what to shoot, it automatically aims at the closest enemy to you. The higher you have the sensitivity, the faster it'll snap to that. So it's people who get like tunnel vision. It's really good at helping you stay locked onto a target, or just straight up being like an aimbot. So it's like if you want like a little bit of help or a lot of help, it has an adjustable slider for it. Then we have detection assistance. We have a good old fashioned radar which shows you everything around you. It basically has a ping frequency. So the lower you set the slider for the frequency is how often it activates and like how often it refreshes the radar. So if you want just like a little bit of help of knowing what's around you, then you can give like a really long refresh rate. Or if you just like you need constant like knowledge of what's going on around you, you can set it to like really quick refresh rate. And you have a straight up X-ray, which allows you to see enemies through cover. They have a little icon that kind of shows like where they are. You don't see the actual full enemy; you just see the icon. You can see them like behind walls and through rocks and stuff. So it's whatever you need it to be.